I want to tell you the story of a man who followed his passion, followed his dream, and allowed destiny to bring him to this place and this moment. That man is Gary Deuce Turrill. Now, by the way, I'd forgotten so long ago that it's Gary. I've only known Deuce since the beginning, just like most everybody in here, and that's a long time ago. In 1972, Deuce began his career as a sprint car mechanic. Over the next 3 decades, his job took him all over the country, logging 1 million miles of travel, literally. Through the course of his career, he worked with some of the most accomplished drivers of his generation. It started with his good friend Rick Unger and continued through something that was very special for Deuce when he had the opportunity to go racing with his son Eric. Sometimes we witness magic as it is happening. That was the case in 1989 when Deuce and Doug Wolfgang and Robert Hubbard teamed up with car owner Danny Peace. It really was magnificent. 43 wins, earning more than $500,000. The Knoxville Nationals, Syracuse, Eldora Nationals, the USA Nationals, 27 wins with the World of Outlaws, and 15 with the USA. If there is a young racer today dreaming of the ultimate, Deuce and his team's 1989 season would be the model. So how do we judge greatness? What's the criteria? No matter how much you do, there's always somebody saying you should have done more. I think the answer is from legendary film director and writer Billy Wilder. You're as good as the best you've ever done. For Deuce and everybody with that 1989 team, that settles it. 46 years ago, 1978, Deuce had a chance to take his first full-time job in sprint car racing. It would require him to move from Memphis to Nebraska. A few people who cared about Deuce and were concerned for him told him to forget it. Sprint car mechanic, there's no future in it. Well, Deuce, there was a future, and the future is today. Welcome to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gary Deuce Turrill. Try not to get upside down in that thing because somebody's got to fix it.
It doesn't have a wing on it.
So what a long, long road it's been, my friend, and here we are. And I know we talked a few weeks ago on the phone. You've had some time to reflect on all of this. What's going through your mind?
Well, they were taking a bet at my table to see how long it was going to take me to cry. But Paul and Ricky, I think they outdid me. So, it's a deal where when I started, it was just such a love for automobiles. And then it became a love for race cars and the chance to work on them and travel. And I can remember getting the Speed Sport and reading about all these exotic places such as Williams Grove and Ascot and Knoxville, originally from a little town in Ohio. So, I'd take a map and figure out how to get there. And then when I met up with Rick, we did that. And then in 78, when I moved to Nebraska to help Butch Barr, it was reality. I was going to be actually getting money in my hand to do this. And I can remember my stepdad, the day I left, he said, "What's plan B?" I said, "What do you mean? What are you going to do if it doesn't work?" "What's going to work?" So here I am.
Here you are indeed. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. if there are unsung heroes in this deal, it is the guys that work on these race cars. I'm telling you, there were times in my life when it's 98 degrees and I'm tired and I'm hungry and I'm hot and I'm getting out of the racetrack at 11:30 and I'm feeling sorry for myself. And then I see these guys, they're just getting started. And so I never felt sorry for myself anymore. And I always worked in total awe of you and Ricky and all these guys that did this, not just for a little while, but for a very long time.
Well, you haven't lived until you were at the motel parking lot working, and you pick up a snap-on wrench and you burn it in your hand. That's the good stuff, you know. But I don't know. It's just a deal where, again, the thrill of creating a race car and then going out and competing against Carl Kinzer and Kenny Woodruff and guys like that, to know that, oh, I'm close to that field now. We're on even field. I got a good race car driver, whatever. So it's just a deal where it just takes such a combination of a good owner, an outstanding race car driver, and a good mechanic that can put stuff together. And we were fortunate enough to be able to do it. And I just think back about all the vendors along the way, the Weld Wheels and the Pro Shocks and Sinead Chassis and all the people that stood behind me when I'd call and say, hey, what do you think about this? What can we do here? Make this better? MPD and they were willing to take on, let's get at it and let's see if we can make it better and see what we can do. So
I kind of look at a racing career like every season's a chapter, because nothing's quite the same one year to the next. And I bet you that of all the chapters you had, everybody wants to talk about 1989 and what truly historic magic that was. I mean, do people ask you a lot about that?
Well, they used to, not so much anymore because I haven't been around a lot lately, but I'm not going to say that was a deal where it just kind of happened. I had set my sights on trying to build my own race car team, because I'm not going to say anything bad about mechanic or owners, but a lot of times you have a good year and at the end of the year, for whatever reason, they're out of business. And what I think a lot of car owners didn't realize, I can't be out of business. I got a wife and a baby and a car payment, a house payment. So I thought, if I could somehow put my own team together, at least I would know when I was going to go out of business. At the end of the year, okay, I'm broke, we'll do something else. So I happenstance, I met up with Danny Peace, and I told him that I'd been talking with Doug Wolfgang about I was wanting to do my own team, and would he be interested in a sponsorship program? And we talked back and forth, and he said he wasn't really interested in maybe a sponsorship, but he would entertain the idea of owning a team. And I said, well, okay. I said, that could work, but I don't want to move to Dallas. I've got a home in Tennessee. That's where I want to be. And sure as hell I'm not going to move to Sioux Falls, so where Doug lives. So he said, it's not a problem. He said, I'm going to own it. He said, all the other stuff's up to you and Doug. So, and that was such a, I guess, a refreshing way to look at it. He said, I'll own it. You mechanic and let him drive it. So Doug and I were allowed to do what we thought was best for he and I to build a race team, to compete with what we wanted to compete with against who we wanted to compete against. And it worked.
Was there a moment early in the year where you felt like, man, this thing is going to work?
Well, I knew from watching Doug in the past, especially like with Bob Weichert, Bob give him what he wanted. I knew if you give somebody like Doug Wolfgang the cars that he wants, the engines that he wants, get the head thing, because it's a head game for all of us. You give him what he wants and what he needs, he'll win races. But I never, ever dreamed that it would turn into what it did. I don't think anybody, I think a lot of it was timing because of the USA and the World Outlaws, the split thing, and everybody was concerned about this and concerned about that. And Doug and I were, okay, here's a pin in Memphis. What's the closest place we can go to make the most money? And that's how we did it. So.
You mentioned the head thing. I asked this of Ricky. As a crew chief, you've dealt with lots and lots of different racers. Is there a key to developing that bond to get somebody to listen to you and give you the feedback you need? What's the key to meshing those personalities?
Well, I think the biggest thing is trust. As a mechanic, you have to have trust in that race car driver. When he comes in after a good run or a bad run, if he says, the car was crap, if you trust him saying that, you work on the race car. But if the car wasn't crap and he just did a horrible job, well, then you start chasing your tail, and that's no good for anybody. And so that's what I always tried to talk to my drivers about. Look, when you go down in there and spin out or run into somebody, you didn't do it on purpose, so I'm not going to be mad. So be honest. If the car was crummy, it was crummy. If you made some junk laps, you made junk laps. We'll do it again tomorrow. So I think that's the biggest thing is the trust and to think about a race car driver. Okay, let's push this thing off and let's go down that straightaway from way down yonder there and just go ahead and run in there wide open. I can't do that. And I mean that was the one thing that I will stand out in my mind forever. When Doug and I put that thing together, that car was conceived on a napkin at a Denny's in Sioux Falls. And 47 days later, we were at Savannah, Georgia, and they dropped the green flag, and I'm standing there, and he goes, "Yow," sails into turn one, wide open. I'm going, I guess he likes what he's got. So, you know.
I think he did like what he got. So you've got some family here. You got some people here.
Yes. Of course, my wife, Susan. I knew that. She is the real.
Deuce will need a ride home.
I was trying to say it without crying. She's the real Hall of Famer because I don't even know how many times I had to call her and say, hey, we're moving. Guess what? We're moving. Pack it up. My son, Eric, his lovely wife, Leanne, my beautiful granddaughter, Audrey, our great friends, Jeff and Diana, Susan's oldest brother, Robert Jr., middle brother, John, their spouses, and Robert Jr.'s son, Billy, and his two kids are here. My great friend, Rick Unger, he's the one that got me started in this mess, I guess. Went from an old rusty old pickup truck pushing him to helping him. So, and he's the one that got me the first paying job. We were at the very first World Outlaw race in Dallas, and he comes back from the pay window and he says, probably going to regret this, but I can get you a job on the road working and making money, but you got to move to Nebraska. I said, where do I sign up? So, you know, he's responsible. Or good or bad, he's responsible.
Somebody's got to be responsible.
I wouldn't trade anything for what's transpired, and I just I want to thank the Hall of Fame for what they do here. During the course of this, I've made some phone calls up here asking questions, but everybody's been so cordial and very helpful, and I want to congratulate all the other inductees. Hey guys, we made it. And Ricky pointed out one thing. And I wasn't going to say this, Rick, but you started it. Here's what you don't do. You don't let your 17-year-old helper go to the sign painter and pick up brand new wings that have gold leaf lettering on them, mount them on a trailer, and drive them through a low-hanging bridge.
Only,
I knew you were going
Is that by any chance there's video of that?
No, we did all the dumb stuff before there was that.
Thank goodness, yes.
Yeah, believe me. Believe me. Yeah, we have video of what we did.
You know, we've known each other a long time, you know, through ups and downs and all of that. And this deal is hard. It's just hard sometimes. And this has to be an awfully good feeling. Through all those hard times, there's also this. Yeah. And this is not hard.
Absolutely, because I've gotten calls and texts and shook hands with people here that I haven't seen in 30 years that I didn't realize I would even, I had some impact on them in one way or another. I had a guy text me the other day that, forgive me, I don't remember him, but he says we stood in a pit area. He was pitted beside me and he was having trouble, and I said, well, your biggest problem is your right front shock is wore out. Your tire's dribbling, and he unhooked the shock, and it was just junk. And he said, I'll never forget that, because we would have chased that forever. We didn't know. So it's just, stuff like that I did not to have any kind of recognition. It's just helping a guy. Because I remember when I was starting out, Rick and I were starting out going to Rick Ferkel and saying, hey, Rick, what do you think? Do this, do that? And he was willing to help. And he didn't help you enough to beat him, but he helped you enough to stay out of trouble, which that's okay, You
do it because it's the right thing to do. Well, Deuce, congratulations, my friend. What a moment. Deuce Turrill.